Good morning. It's Friday, the 5th of September. And just to warn you, my ME is a bit iffy. So I'm going to try and communicate this as well as I can, but just bear with me, please. So welcome. I am Sally Callow, Managing Director of Stripy Lightbulb CIC. Some of you will have noticed that about 6 weeks ago, we flagged an issue with DWP training that has been created in-house, and it's specifically for their work capability assessments. And it's the training that they give to their independent assessors that are, can't remember all the names, but Capita, those kinds of organisations. So anyone that is assessing somebody with ME will be asked to do this training. Okay, and it was implemented in 2023. So it's been used for a while, and that's where a lot of the issues have caused problems. Then I've asked the government to look into it. So let's start from the beginning. So Stripy Lightbulb CIC has been part of a group called the Health Transformation Programme since March 2024. And together with over 100 different charities, voluntary community social enterprise organisations such as Stripy Lightbulb, take part once a month to talk about a wide range of things the DWP are thinking of implementing. So they get feedback from all these organisations, and then they take it away, give it to the department that's working on that specific thing. Okay, so I've been part of that since March 2024. And as part of this work, we're kind of told what we are and are not allowed to contribute to. So just before New Year, literally December last year, they started talking about the training of their assessors. And myself and a couple of other charities that aren't ME started saying, oh, we'd like to get involved with this just to make sure that the training that you're offering your assessors is, following the latest clinical guidance and whatever. And we were point blank told that at least twice, maybe 3 times, and I've got it in writing, that the DWP does not work with VCSEs, which is charities, social enterprises, community groups, on training to avoid bias. And they use the latest clinical guidance, right? So I was thinking, okay. Oh, and they only speak to specialists. So I know that that was said to be reassuring, but anyone that knows anything about ME will know there are no clinical specialists in the NHS. The clinical specialists that are available are usually attached to charities. So if they're not working with charities, they're not working with the specialists. And there are also an awful lot of people who claim to be specialists, but don't actually even understand how post-exertional malaise works. You cannot claim to be a specialist on ME if you don't know anything about post-exertional malaise or post-exertional neuroexhaustion, whatever name you choose to call it, it's the same thing. Which basically means our bodies shut down after minimal exertion, causing us to crash. It's not fatigue, it's an exacerbation of all symptoms. Anyway, so if you don't know about that, there is no way on earth you can claim to call yourself a specialist. Okay, so I'm just going to... Anyway, so this health transformation program team, I think they're kind of independent from DWP, but they kind of work in-house. So they've got like DWP email addresses and stuff, and they class themselves as working for DWP, but it's actually been outsourced, is kind of my understanding of it. Anyway, so they said, oh, so I flagged this issue with the specialists. So I flagged that with DWP, and they said, oh, we'll have to go to our internal teams and get back to you because we don't know the answer to this question. We don't know what resources they're using. We've just been told the latest clinical guidance. Anyway, so a week later, received an email. We've had this back from DWP. No, they don't work with charities or social enterprises because they want to avoid bias. If you want to know anything about the content of the training, then you have to submit freedom of information requests. And myself and other charities, not ME charities, started doing that. And the blogs that we released 6 weeks ago are as a direct result of that work. So I'm going to share with you the work capability assessment training that I've already shared in blogs, but just in case this is new to you, I'm going to share it. And I'm also going to share the letters that I've now written to. Yes, I wrote to Wes Streeting, but I'm under no doubt I'm not going to hear back from Wes Streeting. I'll hear back from somebody in his team eventually, but I haven't had any responses yet. So Wes Streeting, Department for Health and Social Care, and Liz Kendall, Department for Work and Pensions. That was 6 weeks ago. So first of all, I will share with you the training that was sent to me under a freedom of information request. And because it was a freedom of information request, I am able to share it. Now, where have I put it? Window. So it's on here, but I need to then go to there. So this is the training. So as you can see, it was signed off on the 10th of May 2023. So this has been used to assess people living with ME/C.F.S since May 2023, or whenever it was rolled out. But I'm assuming if it took 3 years to get it signed off, so I'm pretty sure it would have been rolled out fairly quickly. So yeah, as you can see, this training has been produced as part of a training program for healthcare professionals who conduct assessments for the supplier, which would be, I said their name a minute ago. What did I say their name was? Serco, people like that. They've been in the news for a decade, so you know the kind of companies that we're talking about. It says here, in addition, the training module is not a standalone document and forms only a part of the training and written documentation that the HCP healthcare professional receives. As disability is a practical occupation, much of the guidance also involves verbal information and coaching. Right, it says thus. Also, although the training module may be of interest to non-medical readers, it must be remembered that some of the information may not be readily understood without background medical knowledge and an awareness of the other training given to HCPs. Much of the medical knowledge contained in this document is psychology based. So it's not really medical knowledge, but anyway, as you can see here, look, they started work on it end of September 2020 and signed off 10th of May 2023. So it took 3 years. And it's an overview. ME/C.F.S is a disorder. The absence of clear causative factors or disease mechanism, the lack of precise case definition. So 250,000 people is woefully out of date anyway. Neurological, endocrine, I can't even say that word today, sorry. So it says here the World Health Organization classifies ME as a disease of the central nervous system. Yes, it does. The Department of Health and Social Care and the NHS both recognise ME/C.F.S as a neurological condition. Okay, so why, if they acknowledge that they're both recognised as a neurological condition, why does this document massively say that it's a psychosomatic illness? I'm trying to just scan for the examples. I know I've got them somewhere, but I don't know. Anyway, so this is the document I'm talking about. You can read it for yourself because I have shared it previously on other blogs, and if I remember to, I will attach it to how do I end what's it sharing? Oh no, there we go. So I'm not going to go through it now because it's a very wordy document, but in that document there are over 10 issues with it, and it's that I'm going to draw attention to in this thing. So let me go back to sorry, this is ME Brain in Action. I have to bear with, I'm afraid. So if I go back to that and then go to summary, key issues. Right, I made a list. because I kept losing track, and it was easier for me to send a list of the errors rather than sending the whole document and a separate email. Anyway, so written by me. Recent findings highlight serious flaws in the DWP's training materials used for WCA assessments involving claimants with ME/C.F.S. These materials perpetuate inaccurate information, breach NICE guideline compliance, and risk undermining the rights and safety of disabled claimants. So here's the key issues. Scientific inaccuracy. Training materials rely on outdated models of ME/C.F.S that disregard biomedical evidence, much of which was published between 2020 and 2023, as was referenced by NICE in 2021. Cognitive behavioural therapy and graded exercise therapy continued to be referenced, although rebranded. When you know what GET and CBT actually are in terms of ME/C.F.S, you can see when it's been rebranded. Anything that mentions goals or rehabilitation or aiming towards a certain level of activity or exertion, that's graded exercise therapy. Despite NICE's 2021 guidance revisions explicitly rejecting these as treatments, contradiction of NICE guidelines, the materials conflict with the NICE recommendation that activity should not be used as a diagnostic tool or forced as part of a recovery model. And assessors are not informed, not even once, of post-exertional malaise, the core symptom of ME/C.F.S. It's the hallmark characteristic of our disease, yet it's not mentioned once. And it's also the reason why most of us are unable to work, which relates to the benefit. It's literally limited capability for work. Harmful stereotyping and bias. Language used in training documents reinforces the perception of ME/C.F.S as psychosomatic or behavioural. There is a There is a systemic dismissal of fluctuating and invisible symptoms, leading to unsafe assessments and harmful conclusions. Safeguarding failures. Lack of assessment awareness around energy limiting conditions poses risks to the mental and physical well-being of claimants. Failure to provide appropriate training may result in unsafe recommendations that exacerbate illness and distress. And the disability rights breach. The materials violate obligations under the Equality Act 2010 by fostering discriminatory assumptions. And the exclusion of lived experience and clinical evidence is incompatible with principles of dignity, fairness, and non-discrimination. So I've put the call to action there, but you'll see it in the letters that I've now sent to the various secretaries of state. So there you go. That's all of the issues I have with this training in one list. Now, I wrote a blog to let the community know what was happening, and obviously external people that have an interest in this, 6 weeks ago. But I'd actually written to the secretaries of state a week before that, because I wanted to get the wheels in motion before I made it common knowledge. Because I kind of wanted to know what was what, see if I got any immediate feedback from the DWP and Department of Health and Social Care. Oh, they need smaller department titles. Anyway, so within about 4 days of contacting, I don't know which department it was. I'm assuming it was DWP, but I could be wrong. I got a letter from the person and her team who created the training. And she basically said, why did you send it to the Department of Health and Social Care? They have no oversight over this training, which is evident. And that's part of the problem. And she wants to meet up. We're trying to arrange meeting up, but there's been annual leave and all sorts of stuff. I've now got a conversation lined up with her towards the end of September. So we're getting there. But I would say my issue isn't going to be resolved by having a conversation with the person that created the training. The issue is now cross-departmental, and this training that has existed since 2023 should never have been created, should never have been signed off, and I dread to think how many thousands of people living with ME/C.F.S have now been assessed using this flawed training. So I'm going to share with you now the letters that I wrote to Wes Streeting and Liz Kendall. Okay, so again, bear with. Share screen, window. If I go to, I wrote to Wes Streeting first, because I think they need to know that despite what they reassure our community, that we're only going by the NICE guideline, we want to implement it and we're trying to roll it out as much as possible. That's simply not happening, not even with the DWP. So we're writing to express our profound and urgent concern regarding the training materials obtained through FOI requests provided to healthcare professionals conducting work capability assessments for the DWP, because it contradicts the NICE guideline. This outdated and misleading training creates a dangerous policy conflict between our key government departments. It poses a direct and significant threat of harm to people living with ME/C.F.S, leading assessors to misunderstand this serious disease and resulting in flawed assessments and the unjust denial of support. I'm just going to skip through these. So 1, mischaracterization of the illness, promotion of harmful exercise regimes, and I've literally given examples of exactly what's contained in the training in that section, inaccurate framing of psychological therapies, and encouraging psychological attribution of physical symptoms. This is the bit that stuck out the most to me. Perhaps most alarmingly, page 18, so if you find that, because I'm hopefully going to remember to share it, have a look at page 18. Page 14 and 15 are particularly problematic as well. Skill is required to assess the degree to which stated difficulties in persisting with tasks is due to the physical component of the illness and which is due to psychological factors. This is an explicit instruction to assessors to doubt the physical reality of the claimant's symptoms. This directly contradicts the cardinal symptom of ME/C.F.S, post-exertional malaise, a debilitating physiological response to minimal exertion. I've stressed that the consequences of this training are severe, and this is what I've asked for. 1, ensure the immediate withdrawal of this training from use in all DWP and contracted WCA services. Establish a formal cross-departmental process to ensure all DWP training and guidance for assessing individuals with ME/C.F.S is rigorously checked for compliance with the latest NICE guidelines before publication. 3, initiate a joint review led by both Health and Social Care and Work and Pensions of the WCA process for ME/C.F.S claimants. This review must be co-produced with ourselves, a CPD accredited ME/C.F.S training provider. We literally have evidence-based latest guidelines, including NICE, scientific evidence, and that is throughout our training. There is absolutely no reason to go back to psychological approaches. Outdated, very outdated. So ME/C.F.S patients should be involved, ME/C.F.S patient representative organisations and clinical experts to ensure it is fit for purpose and evidence-based. And lastly, commit to a cross-departmental review of past WCA decisions for ME/C.F.S claimants where this flawed guidance may have resulted in an incorrect and unjust outcome. To continue to use this training is to knowingly allow one arm of government to perpetuate a system that harms the very people another is trying to support. So we trust that you treat this matter with the seriousness it deserves and take swift and decisive action. Well, it's now been 6 weeks. That is not swift. Okay, so now this is the letter I wrote to Liz Kendall. I won't go over it again, but just to say, following extensive analysis, we found that this document contradicts the NICE guideline, clinical standard for ME/C.F.S within the NHS. Discrepancies are alarming and risk causing serious harm to claimants undergoing assessments. So I list exactly the same things and say this contradiction between your department's guidance and the Health and Social Care Department creates a dangerous policy jarring that exposes vulnerable, because although some in our community don't like being called vulnerable, this is financial vulnerability to stigma, misjudged assessments and denial of support. It undermines the clinical standards promoted by the NHS and risks reputational, ethical and legal repercussions. So I've asked them to do the same thing that I said to West Streeting, and then a copy of our letter to West Streeting was enclosed, so they knew exactly what was said. So as I say, I think the person that created the training was contacted by the DWP, but I don't know. They didn't say. So I'm coming back to you. So there you go. Now you know what I have sent them. I dread to think how many people with ME/C.F.S have been reassessed or assessed for the first time for WCA since that training was implemented and rolled out to assessors. Because if it hasn't been rolled out, I'd be very surprised, because why would you work three plus years on a document and then over 18 months later it's still not been rolled out? Anyway, so I would suspect that there's a bit of foot dragging going on, because this is going to cost them money. Now, I say this as an ME advocate of over a decade. The PACE trial is included in our training, fully evidence-based. All freedom of information requests and etc. Every time it's been talked about in Parliament is included in our training. At the start of the 2000s, I think it was 2006, the Department for Work and Pensions funded a heavily flawed, massively debunked research study called the PACE trial, and it literally was a cost-saving exercise. And that research study has been massively debunked. It is literally mentioned by universities as an example of how not to do research. DWP part funded it. And that's what led to grade exercise therapy and cognitive behavioural therapy being recommended for people living with ME/C.F.S. But there is now copious amounts of evidence seen by NICE, and that's why they no longer recommend it, that grade exercise therapy actually harms people living with ME/C.F.S, and CBT is inappropriate because you are encouraged that you had to think that you have false illness beliefs. There's actually not anything wrong with you, and that if you just do mind over matter, then you can get yourself back to work and you can make yourself feel better. Essentially, in a nutshell, that's what it is. So the fact that the DWP now is publicly saying that they're going by clinical guidelines, the latest clinical guidelines that everybody should know, is nice. And then when you actually read the training document, I think page 14, 15, side by side, it literally says, this is what NICE recommends. However, this BACME, the British Association of Clinicians on ME, I think that's the title, BACME anyway, side by side, this is what NICE says you should do, but this is what BACME says, grade exercise therapy, CBT. So they're literally putting that doubt in their assessors' minds that actually NICE may not know what they're talking about, because look what these clinicians on ME have to say. Unfortunately, an awful lot of clinicians in BACME are psychologists and do still believe in CBT and grade exercise therapy. Absolutely nothing I can do about that. But BACME is also a charity. So if I was told repeatedly that DWP will not work, and I've got this in writing, if I've been told repeatedly that DWP will not work with charities or third sector organisations such as Stripy Lightbulb because of bias, why then are they contradicting the NICE guideline with input from a charity? Anyway, so that's one, that's a side issue. The main issue is, why on earth is DWP contradicting Department for Health and Social Care and NHS policy with this document? Because it is going to save them money. By saying that ME is a psychological illness, it also says that most recover, which is incorrect. I'm pretty sure it's this document. I don't want to conflate documents. I've read an awful lot of DWP documents. It's insinuated anyway that people recover, but actually they don't. I think in the first 2 years, about 15% recover, but after that it drops down to 5%, and nobody knows why. There's no scientific evidence to show why some tiny minority recover and others don't, because they all try exactly the same things. We all try, you know, the latest neuro-linguistic whatever, and we try to exercise ourselves better, but then most of us end up harming ourselves. Anyway, so there we go. So that's kind of what the issues are. And CBT, I have to admit, if I didn't have ME and if I wasn't an ME advocate, I would think, what a load of baloney. Of course, talking therapies cannot be harmful. But if you are, so when you're an ME advocate and you've got ME, you have these conversations all the time. And we say when you start feeling, a bit like when you feel dehydrated, they say, don't wait until you're don't wait to feel dehydrated before having a drink. You need to drink before that to stop yourself from feeling dehydrated. It's the same with energy. By the time you start feeling tired, you've pushed yourself too far. You need to stop regularly, let everything calm back down again, and then stay well within your energy envelope. So telling someone to ignore their body's signals that you're starting to overdo it leads to overexertion. And a lot of CBT is you have false beliefs about illness. There's not actually anything wrong with you. It's a psychological thing. You need to think yourself better. That's the problem. Because if you're not thinking about the signals that your body is sending to you, you're ignoring them. By the time you realize, oh God, I've really overdone it, too late. You may well then have caused yourself. It's literally self-harm. You are harming yourself by not listening to your body's signals. I think that's probably the most simplistic way that I can explain it to people that don't know anything about ME and think talking therapies can't possibly harm you. When you have to literally weigh up every single speck of energy that you're spending that day, ignoring any of that causes or has the potential to cause harm. Just ask the many millions of people around the world who've been encouraged to exercise themselves better and who are now house or bed bound. If you ask them, they will say there is a direct correlation between that advice to exercise or think yourself better, ignore the signals from your body to get better, and how they are today. Anyway, so there we go. As you all know, Stripy Lightbulb is a training platform. That's why we've got an interest in training. That's why we know how to create good training. This isn't that. This DWP document is not informed training. And anybody watching this, if you have any clout anywhere, please do get in touch with me. Or if you're a politician, feel free to give Wes or Liz a nudge, please, because this is serious. This is serious. I seriously dread to, given that we've just gone through a pandemic that has caused a significant increase in the number of people living with ME C.F.S, I can completely understand why the DWP wants to save money. But these people are genuinely physically unwell, incapable of working, and you are denying them the right to money that they are eligible for by using this flawed assessment training. I would like to know what the explanation is for contradicting the NICE guideline in the training. I mean, it's blatant, absolutely blatant. Anyway, on that note, if I remember, I will now put this on the LinkedIn, and you put a link to the blog that includes a link to the training on the LinkedIn and YouTube post words bit. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and I'll let you know if I hear anything.